The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Monday, the 21st of March, 2016, are currently trading with gold at $1,243.70 an ounce, silver $15.82 an ounce, Texas crude $39.44 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 411 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1975, Ethiopia abolishes its monarchy after 3,000 years. The emperors of Ethiopia claimed direct blood lineage from King Solomon himself, via his encounter with the Queen of the South, or Queen of Sheba, or Ethiopia, at least according to the Ethiopian Kibra Nagas. The end of the Solomonic line of kings. Today in history. In recent news, the Supreme Court decided today to take up the patent battle between Apple and Samsung. This design patent case is the first to make it up to the Supreme Court in more than 120 years. The dispute dates back to 2011 when Apple accused Samsung of copying some basic design features of the iPhone. A jury initially sided with Apple in 2012, awarding them over $1 billion. Though the amount was reduced in appeals, a panel of judges upheld the damages owed to $500 million. Samsung agreed to pay the figure, but solely on the condition that it could get their money back in the case of a successful challenge or appeal. After petitioning the Supreme Court to review the case, the justices have agreed to do so. Samsung said in a statement that it hopes that the review can lead to a fair interpretation of patent law that will support creativity and reward innovation. And according to Charles Duan, director of Public Knowledge's Patent Reform Project, quote, when you have a big disconnect between the value of a patent and the amount of money that can be awarded for the infringement of a patent, you end up with really bad incentive. The losers here are the consumers. The Midland Police Department posted a Facebook video that shows them setting off seized fireworks. Their bomb squad lended a hand to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives during the course of 3.5 days in Glasscock County in the setting off and disposal of roughly 20,000 pounds of seized fireworks. It was also reported that Odessa, Lubbock, and Amarillo's bomb squads were also there to watch the show, though it was done during the day to avoid the spectacle. Midland PD stated that these fireworks could not be donated since they had been seized by the BATFE, and their destruction was court-ordered. This is Rick Rohde with your lowdown for Monday, March 21st, 2016.
Got out of town on a boat on the Southern Islands. Sailing you reach before a following sea. She was making for the trades on the outside, on the down near run to Papeete Bay. Off the wind on this heading nigh the Marquesas. We got 80 feet of the waterline, nicely making way in a noisy bar in Avalon. I tried to
Welcome, everyone. This is Agenda 21 Talk. I'm Don. We're going to have a guest tonight. Nana Assumpsit. Nana Assumpsit is going to be with us tonight. Hopefully, she'll call in. This is Tuesday, March the 22nd, 2016, 8 p.m. Central Daylight Savings Time. Call-in number 512-646-1984. So hope Nana calls in soon. This is also an election night. I think Arizona's having their primary. Oh, poor old Donald Trump. I mean, he's moving right ahead. I never did like him on the TV show, but that's just me. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe it's just his persona on the TV. But he's moving right ahead. He sure is causing trouble. I heard him this weekend saying that he's the least biased person he knows. He's loves women too. He's respects women. There's a bunch of crap out there, and a lot of it's from his own TV show and stuff he says to try and be the Howard Stern of the television show genre there, saying wild things. So it come back to haunt him when he's running for president. But anyway, just kind of silly. A bunch of ads. I don't know. The whole thing's just stupid. There's no difference between a Republican and a Democrat. They're all the same. They all push the same agenda. It's just as for the masses, the goyim is supposed to believe there's something different. You're actually voting for something and choosing your government. Well, that's been out the window a long time now. So call in number 512-646-1984. Love to hear from you. Had somebody before the show was talking about with me about wanting to have some property tax wins. And I've mentioned it before, but I sued the property tax guy in federal court. And the other side, his lawyer, wanted to dismiss it because of this Tax Injunction Act that bars federal courts from hearing state tax issues. I said, it's not a tax issue. This is usurping power not granted by the legislature. Because I had documents he had provided where they had changed the use of the property to commercial so that they could tax it, because all they can do is tax the commercial use of the property. So anyway, I actually won. They threw it out, but not because of what their attorney said. I won on that one, and they wanted to throw it out. The attorney wanted it dismissed with prejudice, but they dismissed it without prejudice, so I can bring it back. And the federal court said, we'd love to hear this. Just go through your state court or state remedies first. They did not say state court. They said state remedy. So I actually won. I defeated them on that. And so I got to go through the state first. So we'll go through it. It's an administrative process. Now, that's administrative is only for commercial use, but hey, we can go through it once. I know what they're going to do. I know what they're going to say. They can't answer it. They can't answer anything I brought up. So that's why one guy retired, and now we got this new guy. So anyway, that's the deal. That's a real quick synopsis. So eventually I'll sit down with him, have an administrative hearing, call one, and we'll sit down, and he won't answer any questions, and we'll go from there. So that was really satisfying to actually beat them on the Tax Injunction Act. As long as you stick with your guns, you keep saying it over and over again. It's not a tax issue. It's usurping power not granted by the legislature. Who are they to change the use of the property without any investigation, because there is no commercial activity going on there? So won that. A bunch of weird stuff in the news. Here's, that's not coming up right, but it's an article that Iceland says that 0% of Icelanders 25 years or under, or 25 years or younger, believe God created the world. A new poll shows. So just a few people believe, but they could say 0 believed God created the earth. Less than half of Icelanders claim to be religious, and more than 40% of young Icelanders identify as atheist. Remarkably, the poll failed to find young Icelanders who accept the creation of the Bible. 93.9% of Icelanders younger than 25 believe the world was created in the Big Bang. 6.1% either had no opinion or thought it had come into existence through some other means, and none believed it was created by God. How about that? Bible's coming true. All the world wonders after the beast, and that very few people are in the remnant church. I didn't mention it. We're streaming on logosradionetwork.com. There's a chip-in button. There's a fundraiser going on. They're about 1/3 of their goal of just $10,000. That's hardly anything these days. Bankers use $10,000 bills to wipe their nose with when they sneeze, so it's just hardly anything. So chip in, if you will, logosradionetwork.com. It's good stuff on there. All the traffic seminars. There's a lot of good advertisers on there. They're giving away some pistols, guns for prizes, I guess you could say, for donating. And Eddie Garrick's traffic seminar, you can have get his seminar. You get 10 entries in the gun drawing. It says all kinds of good stuff in there. Michael Maris is there. Just Jurisdictionary used to be on there. I don't see it on the front page, but all right, first page. But anyway, there's all kinds of good stuff there. All right, Nana is on with us. Hi, Nanya.
Hey, Don, how are you?
I'm doing all right. So how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, doing great. So it's Nana.
Since last we talked, some bombs went off in Belgium.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, with the state of things, it's not really clear whether that's, another false flag, whether that was really terrorists. I really just can't really trust the mainstream media these days.
Not at all. Some people were killed. Bombs didn't go off, but who caused it? It made me think. Well, was it Protestants? Was it Methodists, Catholics, Episcopals, Lutherans, Mormons? Anybody any guess of what religion they were that claimed ownership of it? Yeah, it was Muslims. It was ISIS, and that type of thing's okay in the Quran. It says to kill people that aren't Muslim, so it says it in the Quran. Anyway, I thought that was interesting.
Was it really Muslims?
Do what? Say it again.
Or was it really Muslims, or was it some secret government dudes pretending to be Muslims? Or blaming
we don't know. I don't know, but they were pretending to be Muslim if they weren't. In fact, that's for sure.
Oh.
So when we talked, we never really nailed down a subject for tonight's show. So what would you like to talk about? Anything in particular?
Well, the first thing I'd like to talk about is the caller that called in last week. And some of the stuff he was saying was
all right.
really kind of off the wall.
Yeah, it was. A guy named Terry called in. Maybe he's listening now. He said he wasn't listening until the end of the show anyway. He called in the last, 30, 40 minutes of the show. Yeah, he was talking about, he mentioned Walt. He used to call into the show. I hadn't heard from him in months. Walt, that is. But yeah, I was talking about Genesis talks about several creations, and it does not. And then a bunch of other weird stuff about the Bible that Eve had sex with Satan, and that was a serpent, and that was Cain was born, and all. It's just weird stuff. So yeah, go ahead and talk about that if you want. I'll let you. I'm just trying to set the stage.
Well, I found it very disturbing to listen to last week, and it really, I suppose anyone could make the scriptures say anything they want. And, he was using the justification that after they sinned and they covered themselves, they covered their private parts. So that must mean that they had sex, It just, I don't quite follow that. But, what were they supposed to do? Cover their faces? That kind of would make things very difficult, right?
Yeah.
So it just flies in the face of, God's law. We talk God's law is pretty basic, especially when you look at Exodus and Deuteronomy, and you think of how many tens of thousands of pages the U.S. government has for their laws, and how simple and basic God's law is, and it's basically an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Follow God's commandments or don't. And the only commandment God gave to Adam was, don't eat of that tree. God didn't say, don't have sex with the serpent.
Yep.
And so that was the only commandment. Don't eat of that tree. And that's what the sin was. The sin of disobedience when Adam ate of that tree.
Yeah, the sin was doing what God commanded not to do.
Right. So it was a simple thing, an act of disobedience, and that's what plundered the whole of Adam's race into sin and death. Was that one disobedient act? Because that was God's law for Adam at the time, and it was that one simple test of obedience, and Adam failed. So how you can derive, sex with the serpent out of that, I just don't get it.
It doesn't say that in the Bible. You had to weave a story around it using just parts of the Bible, parts of verses, and maybe leaving the whole meaning of the Bible out. You just have to. But anyway, he weaved a story through it.
Yeah, and throughout the Old Testament, God had His chosen people, and He had given them specific. They were in a specific covenant relationship with God, and that was Adam's covenant. As long as you're obedient, you get to live in this garden forever. As soon as you disobey, dying thou shalt die. The effects of sin and death start to happen, and you get kicked out of the garden. So, it just seems so black and white to me. I'm not sure where this thing of sex is coming up from, and why. Why would someone want to believe that?
Yeah, well, we're coming up on a break. We'll talk about it after the break and talk about some flat Earth people who believe the Earth is flat. That's just come out. So hold on a little bit. We'll handle it after the break. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this March the 22nd, 2016. Call in number 512-646-1984.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this March the 22nd, 2016. We've got Nana Assumpsit is with us today from the state of bliss. And we were talking about the caller last week that had called in, listened to the show, last part of the show. And I just wanted to mention that the clothing, the reason they were clothed, they were actually clothed with animal skins, and it was a lamb, I believe. And the Bible may not say that, but it's animal skin, and that was actually a foretaste of Jesus. The reason they didn't die instantly, the reason God didn't kill them instantly, is because Jesus, who had created them, was talking with them, killed a lamb, sacrificed a lamb, and clothed them with the skin of the lamb, his first death. And that was a type, an example of Jesus, the sacrifice he was going to make when the time came. And he came 4,000 years after that. And 2,000 years ago, so it's about 6,000 years, the earth is old since that happened. So anyway, that was the significance of being covered. And it does not say in the Bible, this is my belief, I know it, I just know it to be true, but it's not in the Bible. But in the new earth, when we have gone through heaven 1,000 years with Jesus in heaven, we have a new earth, new heaven and a new earth, the Bible says. And in the middle of that new earth will be a clearing, and in the middle of that clearing will be a tree. And there won't be a sign there that says, don't eat of that tree, but everybody will know not to eat of that tree. It'll be back. It'll have beautiful fruit on it, but there won't be a tempter. There won't be anybody, there won't be Satan tempting us to eat of that tree. So we're not going to eat of it. But it's there because it kind of has to be. God wants us to love him because of his character, not because we're forced to or we're robotically programmed to. And the only way he can do that is to have us have a choice. Do we love him or not? And going with that choice, like the first time in this earth, Adam sinned, going with the choice of free love, free will, is the possibility that someone will not love you or will violate your law. So you have to have both ways. We can't be, God doesn't just program us to love him. We have to have a choice, and with that choice, you have to have a choice to choose the opposite. But the Bible says no one's going to choose it anymore, because if they do, or if they even think about it, people will grab around them and show them the records of life and this hell this earth has been for 6,000 years, and we won't want to do that. So anyway, that's my little thing about that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Well,
Yes,
and that's, and that's a good point with the skins in the garden, because Hebrews 9:22, almost all things are by the law purged with blood. Without shedding of blood is no remission. So when they first sinned, there had to be some sort of sacrifice to purge away that sin. And we have all these atonement day sacrifices in the law for the nation of Israel, and that basically cleansed the nation typically. But it wasn't until Christ came and shed his blood that now the whole world is cleansed by his blood.
Yeah, I think technically, because the shedding of blood didn't cleanse any sin, they said that they went through the rituals, but those were all just examples of Jesus. It was when Jesus died that they were actually cleansed away, and when he rose again,
exactly,
victory over death, the first one. Yeah. So.
Yep, totally agree with that.
All right, and that's
in the garden. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's the whole gist of the Bible. That's the whole meaning, the whole purpose.
Yeah, and we see, the next step on after they were kicked out of the garden, you have Cain and Abel. Cain's sacrifices were not acceptable to God, and Abel's were. And Abel was the shepherd keeping the flocks. He sacrificed, his were blood sacrifices, and Cain's were not. And you can see that those are the sacrifices that are acceptable to God.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I don't know if there's a delay here or
there is. It's difficult. Yeah, you have to get used to it. So okay, all right. You had some more to say? I mean, I really don't want to interrupt you.
Well, and I just wanted to get back to the garden thing and Christ for a little bit, just to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, God's law, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, man for a man. So when Adam, the perfect man, sinned, the only way that man could be redeemed is if a perfect man then gave his life up in sacrifice for that sin to pay the ransom for Adam. And that's what Christ did. And it says in, I want to say Romans, as in Adam all die, so in Christ shall all be made alive. And that Christ for Adam is the corresponding price. It's the ransom. And that's, so in order to really understand the benefit that Christ offers to all of us, we have to go back to Adam in the garden and what happened, because that's where it all started.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So,
agree with that at all.
Trying to find that.
All right. I was looking at that eye for eye.
1 Corinthians 15:22. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive.
Yes.
So in the eye for an eye, let me see if I can find that one.
Exodus 21:24.
Yep, hand for hand, foot for foot. So it all, if you look at the whole thing, the Bible as a whole, it just beautifully harmonizes. And it just, I don't know, to me it just makes so much sense that God's plan is so simple, and that, and the enormity of what Jesus did to lay his life down just puts me in awe every time I think about it.
Yeah, me too. And we cannot fully understand the pain and anguish that he had to go through. But if you just think about it some, I don't know. It gets clearer and clearer the more you think about it. And it is incredible.
And how many of us would do that for even, our child or our loved one?
Yes, and let alone for people that hated you or scorned you, or that were even killing him. He said, hold them up to their charge, and he died for them if they wanted to take of it, accept it.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's kind of crazy, but it works.
Well, there are a lot of weird stuff going on in religions and thoughts of theology these days. And there's a group that started out okay, and they started out as Seventh-day Sabbath keepers. And then they decided I think the deal is a lot of people are trying to find new truth, as if the old truth is not good enough. They want new truth. And we know that there's a lot of misconception and deceit out there. I mean, Jesus said when they asked him about the end times, first thing he said in Matthew and Luke is, be careful you're not deceived. So deception is big time deception in the last days that we're in. So you're deceived. So a lot of people are out there trying to find some truth, trying to peel back the deceptions, and sometimes they go way too far. And the truth is staring them right in the face. They've got it in their hands with the Bible, but they want to peel it back. So this group was a Seventh-day Sabbath keeping group, and then they decided to change the Sabbath to some lunar Sabbath, and they call it the lunisolar Sabbath, whatever. So it's not every seventh day anymore, even though the Bible says it's every seventh day. Now it could be on a Wednesday, and at the end of the month, there may be a Sabbath 4 days after another Sabbath, and then it restarts. And they went off on that, and that got a number of people following that. And now they've gone even further. Now they're flat earth people. They think the earth is flat. And we're running out of time, coming up on a break, so we'll talk about that just briefly, and then we can move on after the next segment. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number 512-646-1984. And it's March the 22nd, 2016. So give us a call.
What's Sweet and Gooey? Available at your local supermarket. Costs about $3 and is known to slash your risk of cancer. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back with the answer in a moment.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
If you're a jelly junkie, I've got sweet news for you. Researchers have found that pectin, the all-natural gel that binds liquid ingredients in jams and jellies, slows the growth and spread of cancer. Cancer cells form tumors by joining together with gooey receptors. Pectin, made from apples and the skins of citrus fruits, binds to those receptors before the bad cells can, eventually killing them. Some say pectin cures chronic joint pain and prevents arthritis, too. Though I can't vouch for that, it can't hurt to try this natural remedy. Turns out a spoonful of apple pectin a day may actually keep the doctor away. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
Looking for some truth? You found it. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
yesterday.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this March the 22nd, 2016. So that's the date where you are, and it's after 8 to 10 p.m. Central Daylight Savings Time. Call in 512-646-1984. I just wanted to mention this group we're talking about that used to be Sabbath keepers, and then they went off to some other way to count the Sabbath rather than 6 days of working and 1 day of rest. They now have become flat earthers. They believe that they've been fooled all along, that the earth isn't round or spherical, even though the Bible says it was round. So maybe they think it's flat like a chalupa, like a flour tortilla, like a pizza, rather than spherical. And so they've got this, as funny as it may seem, they've got this thing on YouTube, and now they're saying the earth is flat. And they're not the only ones. There's another group that does that. So I think people are so starved, or they're so afraid they're going to be deceived, that they come up with these wacky ideas because they think the truth is being suppressed, but yet the truth is still there. It's in the Bible. And you just have to read it and just not go off with any wacky ideas. But I just wanted to mention that. That's kind of the state we're in, the state of mind of people are so running around afraid they're being deceived, so that they are deceived. They had the truth once, and as Jesus said, now they have their delusion. So, I don't know. That's just the state we're in, the condition we're in the stream of time. And I imagine it's going to get worse. It's only going to be more and more people doing these things. The Quran says the earth is flat, and the sky is a table that's held up by mountains. So, that's not a new idea.
Well, I guess all those people that circumnavigated the globe fell off somewhere then, maybe.
Yeah, I cannot figure that out.
Earhart went.
Yeah, the Quran says that the earth is flat, and that Alexander the Great saw where the sun sets in a muddy pool in the west. And that's what it says in the Quran. So I don't know. Maybe that's what these people are thinking. The sun sets in water. But how do they get around? People have just gone into these, they're not hot air balloons, but they're helium-filled or hydrogen-filled balloons. They go up into the upper atmosphere, or you can get in a U-2 space biplane, and you can see the curvature of the earth there. Well, how about the astronauts? I mean, we've got the space shuttle. They released a photo of this eclipse a couple of weeks ago, and beautiful, full Earth with the shadow on it, the black spot from the eclipse, and you can just see it, the umbra around it, where it's just dark and black in one spot, and then dark gray around it. It's really beautiful, just a beautiful picture. How do you think the Earth is flat?
I don't get it. I mean, then is the moon flat too? Because, I mean, how would you get the crescent moons if it's flat?
I don't know. They didn't address that in this video. So I don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand, you just, with the amount of deception that is going on, it's, it makes sense to be skeptical about certain things. Like, did we ever really land on the moon? Back in the 60s when that happened, or early 70s, is it a hoax? It could be. I won't say it is. I won't say it isn't. I have no idea, but it could be a hoax. But if that's the case, it still doesn't prove the Earth's flat.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't make
Not
any
at all.
sense. And I know people that have done around the world flights. I haven't myself, but I've certainly flown in each direction far enough to get just about all the way around.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that mountain, the volcano Krakatoa was such a huge explosion in the 40s, 50s, that it was the shockwave actually went around the world. And so I don't know if it was flat, it wouldn't have done that unless it bounced off a wall somewhere. It came back. Yeah. But anyways, the whole point of all that is just to say that there's a lot of deception out there, and people are trying desperately to find the truth. Well, the truth is in the Bible. Read the whole Bible. Study it. You got to really study it. Study every word. It's great with computers. You can do word searches, and you can find or at least a lot of verses that have similar words talking about the same subject. And your narrative of what the Bible is saying has to meet all those things. I was absolutely amazed when I searched all the Bible verses about the last day or the day of the Lord or in that day. Sometimes it says that. So you search for all those, you piece them together, and it talks about fire burning up, the earth being burned up with fire. just as it says, is it Peter that talks about the earth being consumed with fire? Well, he's quoting one of the minor prophets who said that, who's actually quoting other people. So it's consistent. So anyway, you gather stuff like that together. And so whatever you think about the last day when Jesus returns, better include the earth burning up, because it says it multiple times.
Yeah, but is that the literal earth or the figurative earth?
It's the literal earth, because it says everything's being burned up. You'd have to read them. I actually got that on. Maybe I'll send it to you if you're interested.
Well, I have some, but there's also another scripture that say the earth abideth forever.
Well, it will. It will come back. He will create it, the new heaven and the new earth, and that will abide forever. And this will be our home. The earth the earth isn't going to burn up. The surface will be burned up. Everybody on it and all the works of man will be burnt up. And then God will recreate it, the new heaven and the new earth, Isaiah says. So the earth will be recreated, just like the Garden of Eden, only better. Enhancements. Surprises, I think it says. So, yeah, it comes back. It's, so people that say this earth is going to be destroyed and we're going to spend the rest of eternity in heaven are incorrect. We spend 1,000 years in heaven, and then we have eternity on this earth, but we're not stuck on this earth. We get to move around the universe and meet all the different worlds and beings God has created.
Oh, interesting. I have a little different take on that, but that might be for another time.
All right.
But yeah, I do agree that the earth and the new heavens and the new earth, I think that is more figurative. That the earthly society, the earthly systems are definitely going to be destroyed and burned with fire. And this fire is generally used in two ways in the Bible. It's generally used as a purification as well as a total, utter destruction. Like there is no coming back. When you throw something in the fire, it's destroyed forever. You're not getting it back. And so I can see those two aspects of fire being used in the Bible, and the old heavens and the old earth that are going to pass away. I see that as the old ecclesiastical heavens. Basically, these false religious systems that are on the earth today, those are going to be totally destroyed.
Oh, they will?
And the false ones, yeah.
It also, Jeremiah mentions that there'll be dead bodies laying around, and we can go on with that, but there'll be dead bodies laying around, and there'll be crows, the birds sort of pick at them, but there won't be anybody there to lament them. So yeah, that's all. The wicked will be destroyed. Those that have volunteered to pay the price of their own sins and not have Jesus do it, and all their works, all their buildings and everything. But it mentions in Isaiah 65, talking about the new heaven and the new earth, it mentions, and they shall build houses and inhabit, and they shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. That's pretty specific and sort of not mundane, but it's an everyday existence that doesn't seem to be symbolic.
Oh, no, I agree. I agree with that. Oh. What I'm saying is symbolic is the false ecclesiastical systems and the social systems and the political systems, and all of that's going to crumble and be destroyed, because Christ's kingdom is the only system for the new heavens and the new earth.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It'll be like it was supposed to be at the Garden of Eden.
Yep, 2 Peter 3:13. We, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwells righteousness.
Exactly. Okay, coming up on a break. This is Agenda 21 Talk.
Easy.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk. In this segment, let's talk a little bit about property tax. Don't know how far we'll get. I mentioned at the show my most recent experience, which was last year. Now, yes, almost a year and a half ago. Anyway, so property tax in Alabama, and in all the states, but I know for sure Alabama, looked it up. It's actually administrative. The Title 40 in Alabama is revenue, and there's sections in there about some property tax, and assessor has to do this. He has to fill out you have to assess your property tax yourself. You have to assess your property of how much the taxes is, how much commercial use you're using, basically is what they're saying. But you have to assess it. And if you don't, he will. And nobody does. In fact, they won't even take it, because I did that. I assessed it to 0 because there is no commercial use of the property, and he didn't want to take that. So that's one of the things I've got him on. But that's one reason he resigned. But so, yeah, if you don't assess it, they will. Now, they're supposed to sign under penalty of perjury, under the assessment, or on the assessment, that the following is true and correct. And they don't do any of that. They just use a computer that spits out stuff. So they don't follow their law for them to follow. And then if you look in the Administrative Code of Alabama, which is a little more difficult to find, but I did, for ad valorem taxes, and it mentions the use of the property to be taxed. And the guy doesn't even know about that part. And so anyway, so you would think then, and I did an open records request and didn't get a response, but I asked about what administrative agencies are there anymore. Texas has an administrative code, and they have administrative courts and things like that, but Alabama doesn't. They don't actually apparently have no administrative capacity, but it really doesn't apply in this case anyway, because it's not commercial use. So anyway, but the thing is, the next recourse would be to have an administrative hearing and ask them, where's your authority to change the use of the property from private to commercial so you can tax it? And in Alabama, the assessor gets a certain percentage of everything he collects. So you have a vested interest in changing private to commercial and taxing it so you get money. So you ask them those questions, they won't answer it. They'll have some phony baloney stuff that the attorney will say, but they will not answer it and will not provide remedy for their... anyway, that's the usurping of power, where they have no power to change the classification or the use of the property, certainly without an investigation. So that is usurping power not granted by the legislature. The legislature did not grant them the authority to do that. So anyway, that's the 2-minute speech I have on what property tax is in Alabama, and it's the same in all the states. So is that about what you have found, Robin?
Yeah, pretty similar. But I wanted to ask you, how did you notify them that there is no commercial use on your property?
By affidavit.
Send them official notice?
Record. Do what?
Okay.
Yeah, just by affidavit, filing a public record, and I walked it down to him.
Okay, and that didn't change anything?
No, it made him resign. He quit. That's what it did.
I did something similar. In the public record, I filed a notice that said, basically, I believe I have exclusive rights to this property. And if anyone has a claim to this property, you have 30 days to bring your claim forward and record it in the public, and notify me. And of course, nobody has filed a claim. I sent that notice to the tax assessor, and of course, I didn't get any response to that. I didn't send the notice, but I sent the letters to the governor, attorney general, and secretary of state asking, do you have any claims to my property? Do you know of anybody who does have claims to my property? Please let me know. I wish to settle all claims. And of course, I didn't get anything back. I did get letters back, but they weren't, nobody has a claim. So what I'm trying to wrap my head around is how can the state claim your property when you don't pay taxes on it, when they don't have a claim to your property?
Yeah, the only way is by force of arms, and they just do it illegally and believe nobody can stop them. That's what I think.
Yep. Illegal and unlawful, and it's, I'm getting sick of it at this point. But yeah, so there's a guy on YouTube, and I think he actually was on one of Eddie Craig's shows about 4 or 5 years ago. His name's Harmon Taylor. He, I've heard there's not a lot of YouTubes on him, but there's a few, and he talks a little bit about property tax. But the thing about him is very interesting. He was a lawyer and a constitutional lawyer, and he was on the Timothy McVeigh defense case. And he saw a bunch of unconstitutionalities, if that's a word, in that case, which, he argued for the Constitution and basically was told the Constitution is of no effect.
Yep.
So he's like, wait a minute, so he's like, wait a minute, how is that possible? So he did his research and kind of went back and back and back with different acts, and he explains this pretty well in his videos. But the bottom line is, he says, there's the law of the land, and then there's the law not of the land, which includes the law of the sea and the law of the air. And the system that's being operated today is not the law of the land. That's why the Constitution is of no effect. Effectively, it has no effect. And so when you look at what law is being played out, there had to be some consent somewhere that we consented to operate under this law of the air, and that's why they're continuing to ignore us. They're not answering questions. They're acting lawlessly, and somehow I'm trying to figure out, where did I consent, because I didn't really know I consented.
Absolutely, you're fraudulent, fraud in the inducement. If you consented, it was by fraud. Now, maybe you think it's by all these benefits we receive, Social Security, any other benefits, licenses, name in all capital letters, benefits like that.
Yeah, it could be. In Harmon Taylor, he talks about where the consent is. He doesn't really talk about how to unconsent, which is kind of what I'm really interested in. But even if you take a benefit, say you have a driver's license, that means you're a slave for everything else, and you're required to pay property tax because you have a driver's license. It doesn't make any sense. And I think the presumption is that, yeah, sure, if you have any of these benefits, then you're a corporate citizen, and you're the peon in the corporation, and you're subject to all the orders from the higher ups. But that's what I've been trying to figure out is, how did I consent, where did I consent, and how can I unconsent? And property tax is the biggest one.
Well, you can see what they're doing wrong with that. I mean, just really simply on the property tax. The rest of it, and all of it in total, maybe using all of it together, the name in all capital letters, the licenses, the using Federal Reserve notes. Maybe that is your acceptance of their totalitarian rule, because you're using their money, their private money.
Well, and that's another thing that he says in his videos, is that you're using the private money of the corporation, so you are presumed, to be within that system. And if you look at your deed, your property deed, it's got the corporation all over it. It says state of blank, which is not, Alabama or Ohio. It's the federal. This is the federal corporation or subdivision or franchise that is the state of blank. So that's on the deed. It talks about the dollars that was used instead of lawful money that was used to transfer the property. There's a few other things on there that, if you look, even the notary seal. The notary seal puts you into that legal jurisdiction.
Mike Shannon says it's a notary seal that takes you private. It's a bridge between the private and the public.
Yep, and your deed was private until you put it in the public in their public. That's how I understand it. But.
Yeah, and the whole question is, how do you undo all of that? Maybe we can work this out in the next segment of the show. This is the hour break. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Got Nana Samsit with us today. Very happy to have her. And call-in number after the hour will be 512-646-1984. I think we've covered some nice topics so far. So call in with your comments or questions or anything else you'd like to cover. 512-646-1984. Everybody have a good, safe break, and we'll catch you in the second hour.
All around sitting way up high, way up firm and high. Now past the cornfields where the woods got heavy, out in the backseat of my '60 Chevy, working on mysteries without any clues, working on a night moves.
Welcome back to the second hour of Agenda 21 Talk. And we were talking, Donna Sumpset and I were talking during the break, and Deborah Stevens, our producer, and you know Deborah Stevens, says she knows Harmon Taylor. So she's going to talk about him. We're going to bring her on, and she's going to talk about Harmon Taylor and some of the ideas of how to unplug and some things like that. So, hey, Deborah, how you doing?
Hi there, Don, and hello, Nana. Thank you for inviting me to join the conversation. Yeah, I have to say that my ears pricked up when y'all started talking about Harmon, because he's actually one of my best friends in the whole world. I'm very blessed to work with the man. He's a dear Christian brother. He's very guided by the Holy Spirit, and believes in Jesus Christ, and he's just a wonderful person to work with. I'm just very blessed to know the man and to be able to work with him. And so when y'all are talking about some things, I'm like, oh, I could answer that. It's
well, anybody that's willing to walk away from the bar, as he has, I mean, it's just, totally impressed. I was totally impressed by him I just came across his videos just in the last, month or so. So I was thrilled to hear you say that. That you know him. Awesome.
He's one of the few people actually that I think really knows what he's talking about, and really knows how to deal with the system as far as how it works. On a fundamental basis, like what you were talking about, law of the land versus, law of the sea or maritime law and things like this. And going back to how he discovered all of this, because, yes, as you were saying, he was a staunch constitutionalist, and how he reached this point, the big turning point for him was he was the attorney who represented several of the survivors of the Oklahoma City bombing. And there was lots of evidence that situation was not what we were being told it was. And I even was a co-producer of the documentary A Noble Lie, which basically exposed the whole situation there. But at any rate, back to that case, that's the Terre Haute litigation, where they had evidence that Timothy McVeigh was a military agent. And he even admitted to it and all these things. And so they wanted to, and when I say they, I mean Harmon and his clients, they wanted to depose Timothy McVeigh and to get him to spill the beans, because McVeigh actually wanted to spill the beans on what he was really doing to save his own life. And then he was prevented from doing that. And so they filed suit, basically challenging everything that happened with the Timothy McVeigh murder trial, or whatever they wanted to call it. Because the thing is, that building, that federal building, was not really a federal building. Okay, it was owned by the state of Oklahoma. The feds were renting it, or perhaps leasing it. They may have had some ownership of the building, but the point is, even if the feds own the land and the building, that doesn't mean that the feds had jurisdiction there. The states have to formally cede over jurisdiction to the federal government in order for the feds to have jurisdiction over like criminal issues and stuff like that. And if you can look all this up in state archives, and like in Texas, there's very few properties that are actually ceded. They're like federal prisons and a couple of military bases, things like that. Post offices are not necessarily under federal jurisdiction. That's just a business run by the feds. So anyway, one of the main things that Harmon was challenging in that situation was, hey guys, number one, the feds never should have even been involved in this in trying Timothy McVeigh in the first place, because they didn't have any jurisdiction. That should have been a state murder trial. OK, just because it was a federal building with federal offices doesn't automatically make it a federal question. And furthermore, they moved the trial to Colorado because everybody in Oklahoma City knew what really happened, because everybody knew all the bombs were going off inside the buildings before there was even a truck, and that there was no truck bomb at all. OK, I mean, watch the documentary for all the full evidence. But at any rate, so he went on all of this U.S. Constitution stuff that they had no jurisdiction to run the case the way they did. And the district court, of course, dismissed them out. And so they appealed. And I think it was the Seventh Circuit handed Harmon and his clients what he refers to as the padded 2x4. Very difficult lesson with a little bit of padding. And what the appellate court told them is, basically, like what you were saying, Nona, none of the Constitution stuff matters because according to Title 18, Section 7, we can do whatever we want. And if you read that statute, basically it says that the feds can come in and claim jurisdiction over any property that they have an interest in. And, of course, that begs the question, well, how can that be a constitutional law? Well, that's the whole point. All statute is by agreement. All law is by agreement. Everything, okay, except for common law crimes, assault and, all of the murders and that sort of thing, burglary, anything where you're causing like damage to somebody intentionally like that. Those are considered common law crimes. Those types of statutes are not by agreement. They apply to you whether you want them to or not, because if you try to say, well, I don't agree to that, then what the government will do, what the state will do is say, oh, okay, you don't agree to our criminal penal code? Well, then we're going to treat this attack, this assault as a war crime on one of our citizens, and then they'll throw you into a military tribunal. So it'd be behooved to at least agree to the penal code because the results are alternative is not what you would want. But everything else is by commercial agreement. Everything, all regulatory schemes, every statute, all the driver's license stuff. I mean, anything you can possibly imagine, it is all by commercial agreement. You have to agree to be regulated. And so the thing is like what you were talking about. Well, how do people fall into these agreements? Well, one of the primary ways that people fall into these agreements is that they ask the government permission for things. They apply for a license. Okay. They ask permission. These government entities, they put this carrot on the stick out there, so to speak, and they try to trick you into believing that you have to have these things because the law requires them. And that's just not the way it is at all. And so it all boils down to the choice of law and just like you're saying, opting out of these commercial agreements. And of course, once you get entangled in them, it can be very difficult to get out of them. And say, for example, going to the property issue, like for land and such, one of the primary way that people get entangled in these agreements for property taxes and eminent domain and things like that is when they purchase the land. Okay, because most people have to finance their property, and so they have to use all the standard banking forms, and they have to agree to all the terms of the banking system and things like that. And basically what happens at that point, just in a nutshell, is that you are putting the land in a trust where you're the fiduciary and the state is the beneficiary. Actually, there's multiple beneficiaries, and they're all listed on your property tax bill, school district, hospital district, all these other things, right? And so, in order to extract yourself from that kind of agreement, you have to do another land sale, another property sale. You've got to get yourself out from under a mortgage, and then you've got to do another sale and rework the deed on your own terms, not the form of the real estate agent and all that sort of thing. And you have to, I guess, have another entity. Don, may get into, talking about trust is a good option, where you have another entity purchase the property and with silver. And you write your own terms. And then basically what you do is then you have to notify all these entities that they are no longer beneficiaries of this property. The trust has been dissolved. And so that's when the fight comes on, because then they're going to go after you for not paying property taxes. And so then you have to fight them in court over it. And it can be a big battle. But that's really where it lies. Not really in the notary, because the thing is, if you're going to participate in even engaging in the fight, you have to do things like appearing in court. You have to file documents with the court. You have to file lawsuits and things like that. And so you have to appear just to the extent you have to agree to the rules of the game, just for the purpose of being able to prove that they don't have jurisdiction or control over you. But if you take the route of, I'm not going to deal with you at all, well, then the court can't see you, and then they're just going to run roughshod over you. So that's kind of some things, in a nutshell about the property issue. And of course, like with transportation and driver's licenses, you can have driver's license, but you don't have to use it. Stuff like that. There's opting out of these things is a very, very complicated thing, and there's a lot of deep concepts that I think I can't really fully explain for even the rest of the show. We need like a few weeks with Harmon to go over it really well. But it is different for every person. But the primary thing to realize, that people need to realize, is that there's no such thing as Constitution. It doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters at all, okay, because it's all by agreement. And so people will fall into these agreements, and they'll say, oh, they violated my rights. Oh, what they did was unconstitutional. No, it's not. You agreed to it. And that can be a really hard lesson for people to learn. But that's pretty much the way it is. Once you agree to the rules, once you agree to be regulated, then you can't turn around and say, oh, this isn't fair. They're violating my rights, because you basically agreed to this whole scheme. So that's kind of in a nutshell how it works. I'm trying to, go over a lot of things really fast here.
Well, coming up on a break, but I have a question. How do you pay a filing fee to bring something in court without using these private Federal Reserve notes?
Well, let me address that on the other side of the break.
All right. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number 512-646-1984. Having a great show tonight. We have two esteemed guests, Nana Sumsit and Deborah Stevens. So hang on. We'll catch you after the break, and you won't want to miss this. Call-in number 512-646-1984.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
I'm sailing away, sailing open course on a virgin sea. I've got to be free to face the life that's ahead of me. On board I'm a captain, so climb aboard. We'll search for tomorrow on every shore, and I'll try.
Back. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this March the 22nd, 2016. And we're talking with Deborah, who's going to try to say in a synopsis of some things, and also about plug Harmon Taylor's stuff. I don't know what he has, audio, video, classes, whatever. So go ahead, Deborah.
Yes, Harmon does not have a website or any kind of a blog officially, stuff like that, because he has figured out their game to the point that he's potentially could be a target. And actually, he was a target. There were men in black following him around during that Terre Haute litigation, and they were real obvious about it too. They weren't trying to hide it. They were doing it for intimidation purposes. But at any rate, so what he has instead is he has an email list. So let me see if I can pull up that he has a public email that if you want to be on his email list, he writes articles and explains some of these things. So while I'm pulling up his email here, it is. Let me see. It's legal. I'm gonna have to pull it up here. It's legal_reality at earthlink.net, I believe. But let me just verify that a little bit more later.
It used to be on Earthlink. I didn't know they were still in business.
Yeah, let me just. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull that up here again. Earthlink.net. Legal. LEGAL_reality at earthlink.net. Okay, so to answer the question, I'm going to try to answer it the best I can, because where you're heading is getting to the heart of the one of the primary issues here concerning how do you deal with the system without making agreements. Hold on one second, please.
We had a caller. She's going to.
Okay, no. I'm sorry. There was some people outside that were talking really loud, and it was kind of distracting me, and I was afraid their voices were coming through on my mic. Anyways, okay, so let's go to your question. How do you file lawsuits and get around the issue of the Federal Reserve notes, paying in Federal Reserve notes? And the short answer is you can't. And the other part of that answer is you don't want to, okay, because their whole system revolves around the agreement of the use of their funny money, okay? And so when you are dealing with any kind of government entity like that, especially the courts, here's an analogy. you want to be on the team to help your basketball team win the game, right? They're getting their butts kicked by the other team, and you know that you can hit the 3-pointer, and you want to get out there on the field. Okay, that is, you want to file a lawsuit. Well, if you're going to play a game like that, you have to agree to the rules. All right, you've got to put on a uniform. You've got to have the number, that whole thing. You can't just be going and knocking people over and grabbing the ball and stuff like that. You have to know the rules of the game. You have to play by the rules of the game, and you have to be skilled at it. And so when you appear in court, you actually want to participate in, let me just word it this way. You want to agree to participate in their system only to the extent for the sole purpose of appearing in court to make your case, and which is whatever the case is about, whatever you're accusing me of. I did not agree to your system and your rules regarding that issue. Okay, whether they're accusing you of driving without a license or the grass police, your grass is too tall, or whatever the case may be, you want to make the point that I have no contract with your company. Okay, this is all by commercial agreement. Their company, they're not even really a government anymore. They get their governmental authority by agreement, by commercial agreement specifically. And so if you want to defend yourself or even go after them for harming you, and you need to be able to prove your point that you have no commercial contract with them. You have no commercial nexus with them. You did not agree to be regulated by them. You do not agree to their statutory scheme because it's all by commercial agreement, and you don't agree to it. The only way that you can tell them that and make that point and prove it is that you have to agree to the system that they have set up in the courts, but only for the purpose of appearing in court. Because if you try to pull things like, I'm going to pay a fine fee in silver, okay, or, sometimes people will, and I know that this has worked for some people before, but I think that it has worked for reasons that they don't understand why it has worked, mainly just because sometimes the courts just don't know what to do. But those, and I think this has worked for you too, Don, and I'm not saying that, it's necessarily wrong, but sometimes you get a happy mistake and you'll win. But this whole thing of like, well, that's not me. Okay, you have to address me in upper lowercase and stuff like that. If you insist on that as far as your case style and how you write your, how you print your name on the document, then what you're telling the court is, I don't agree to your rules. I want to play basketball on the field, but I'm not going to put on a uniform and I'm not going to have a number. I'm just going to get out there and do my thing. And so you're either going to get dragged off the court, or they're just going to not see you. They just won't. Even if a judge wants to help you and agrees with the merits of your defense or the merits of your lawsuit that you're filing, even if the judge can see, yeah, this person has no commercial agreement over this, that, and the other, they're right. But the courts can't help you if you're not going to agree to at least participate in their rules for the only purpose of appearing in court. And so, I mean, I know that doing other things the opposite way has worked for people, but I think that probably the real reason that it has worked is because some of these courts just don't know what to do with it, so they just want to get rid of you because you're just too much of a problem. But when you're doing things like this, you always want to prepare your case with the goal in mind that this is going to end up eventually in the Supreme Court of the United States. You have to direct everything towards that goal. And so you have to anyway. The short, what I'm trying to say is you have to agree to the rules of the game if you want to play the game. And if you don't want to play the game, well then you need to just live in a mountain somewhere away from everything. Which they're going to come after you anyway. So there's not really much of a choice. It's like you got to put on the uniform. You got to put on the hat. Okay, I'm here now. I agree to your system. I agree to use your Federal Reserve notes so that I can appear in court so that you can see me, because they won't be able to see you. It's like you're not even filing anything.
Well, I can see what you're saying, and I can see how when I say my name is written this way, and you either write my name that way or you're not talking to me. When they're coming after me, that's me saying, I can see them, because it worked for me, I can see them saying, well, he's opted out, and he knows the system, So, we just drop everything.
Yes.
Just traffic stuff. They're going after me.
Yes.
Now, on the other side, if I want to bring a lawsuit against or some action against the tax guy, I can see what you're saying. I have to put the all caps name, but only to say that isn't my name. I'm just doing this to get this in the court. As long as everybody knows it's not my true and correct writing of my name, and it's only for a special appearance type of thing. Maybe
yes, special appearance. Yes, well, we can maybe talk about that on the other side.
Yeah, coming up on a break. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number 512-646-1984, and just have 2 segments of the show left. So call in with your comments or questions.
Promise of a coming day.
In Wisconsin, an elderly woman who housed orphans was about to lose her home to foreclosure when her 12-year-old grandson came to the rescue. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, back with the story of Noah the Dreamcatcher after this.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
For years, Janice Sparhawk cared for dozens of orphans, many dropped on her doorstep after dark. But at 72, she was in trouble. Her health failing, she couldn't pay the mortgage. Unless she found $10,000, the bank would foreclose. She appealed to her congressman, her governor, and even the president, but it was her grandson, Noah, who saved the day. The 12-year-old posted her story on a website he'd created 3 years earlier, Noah's Dreamcatcher Network, to help hurricane victims. Within days, enough money had poured in to rescue Sparhawk, her foster kids, and their faith in America. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Back again. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this March the 22nd, 2016. Call-in number 512-646-1984. And Deborah was talking about signing a court document so that you are separating yourself from the federal name. So go ahead with that, Deborah.
Right. Well,
synopsize it.
Yeah, I can't. There's not enough time to fully explain it. And besides this issue of how you make your appearance without basically putting yourself in jeopardy of agreeing to the system, as far as your activities outside of court. This is probably one of Harmon Taylor's most important lessons. And so he really needs to be the one that explains it. And so folks need to contact him about it, to really grasp the whole concept, because it's more than just how you sign your name or what you put at the, in print at the end of the document. You have to really understand what's going on with that separation and just exactly what are you separating anyway. And so basically, for like the case style, it's you appear in the capacity of playing the game, which, one way to indicate that is the name in all caps thing. That's a big way to do it, because if you put your name in upper lowercase in the case style at the top, then what you're telling the court is, I don't agree to your rules. I don't agree to play this game. And they're going to be like, well, why are you here? Okay, this is ridiculous. All right. And see, what's starting to happen now is that because there's so much stuff going on, controversy around this all caps and upper lowercase thing, that now some of the courts are like, they just start putting the name of the court in upper lowercase, and they start putting your name in upper lowercase. They're like, oh, okay, well, you want us to address you like that? Then fine. And they don't even know what they're doing. And then that just kind of muddies the waters even more as far as jurisdiction of the court. Because when they do stuff like that, they're kind of saying that they're not really doing anything either. And then the higher courts have to step in and straighten the whole thing out. So it starts to get really complicated. But the point being, it's all about the special appearance. I mean, you made that point earlier, Don. This is a special appearance where you are basically telling the court, I agree to your rules for the sake of you being able to see me. That's a special appearance only, so that I can make the point that I don't agree to any of these regulations, any of these regulatory schemes regarding the content, the merits of the case. And so you make that separation, not in the case style. You make it at the bottom of the document with how you structure the text at the bottom of the document and your signature. And y'all gonna have to talk to Harmon about that one.
All right.
So, but the point being, you know, it doesn't really help people to just tell them you need to do this, or you need to do that, or you need to have all caps, or you need to have upper lower caps here, and you need to sign it like that. That's not really going to help people. People need to understand what they're doing when they do that, and this special appearance thing and this separation thing is the primary thing. But even, you know, those are more issues, you know, once you get into litigation. I mean, the primary thing is you have to stop agreeing to these things, and you know, there's ways to back out of it, you know, elegantly. You know, but a lot of times it's not so elegant. A lot of times you have to restructure title documents and deeds for property and things like that, and restructure bank accounts and things like that. Sometimes people have to completely change their whole lives and all their bank accounts. And I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use credit cards anymore, that you can't, you know, have a bank account or things like that. But there often has to be a restructuring of that. And so Harmon is the one that can more fully explain about that. The point is, you can still engage in the system for the purpose of special appearance without biting off everything that they want you to bite off hook, line, and sinker, is the point I'm trying to make.
All right.
I heard it's a lifestyle. You know, trying to do this is you really have to change your lifestyle because we're just so accustomed to signing our name on everything and accepting liability for everything and agreeing to everything.
Yeah, it's a good point. No, I was going to say the same thing. It is a lifestyle change, and like Deborah was saying, you really do have to own it. There's a difference between filing the exact right paperwork and not knowing what you're doing, and filing it and knowing what you're doing. They can almost sense fear. They can sense when you don't know what you're doing. You're just filing something. When you talk to them, they know if you know what you're doing. You just exude the confidence, and you just know it, and they behave differently.
And they'll quiz you on it too. Yeah, I mean, they'll quiz you. They'll ask questions. Why did you sign your name that way? What does that mean? You know, and if you can't explain it, you know, you're toast.
Good point. You have to know it, study it, learn it, and do it often enough that you can just cite it in your sleep.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Deborah, for that. That's a great synopsis. Really appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to be listening here, and I may jump in again if I hear something interesting. But I would just encourage folks to get on Harmon's email list because he really, really does know what he's doing. I mean, he really, really does. We're figuring it out more and more together. We've actually made some major breakthroughs just even in the last few days regarding transportation issues, which there's not enough time to get into on the air. But I highly encourage y'all to get in touch with him and go to the School of Harmon Taylor. Really, he's my mentor for sure.
Let me ask you a question too. I haven't talked to Eddie Craig in quite a while. He travels around without no license or without a license plate, I believe. Is that correct?
Well, he has in the past some, and yeah, he will get hassled, and he will let them know that he's not in transportation and things like that. I mean, if you're going to go the whole route of no registration, no tags, you got to be prepared for a real fight because you're going to be getting pulled over every time you leave the house unless there are certain things that can be done so that will not happen. But I mean, again, we're talking about restructuring things. I mean, it's eventually you can get to the point where you can have like a quote normal lifestyle again, where you can, have all the conveniences of what you're doing now. And be out of their clutches, so to speak. But there will be a period of time of almost turmoil and upheaval while you're restructuring things and filing lawsuits and possibly getting sued and going through periods of litigation in order to get over that tribulation, so to speak.
It's all a test. Yeah, it's all a test. Well, we know someone who's put a private tag on their car and sent that to the state. And he's had cops behind him several times, numerous times, and they've never stopped him because actually it's his own private tag. And I did that too. And they don't respond. They don't say they've done it, but they do put it in the system so that the cops can run it and they know who you are.
Yeah, many times once they see that you're at least on the road to figuring it out, even if you haven't totally figured it out, they will start to leave you alone. And here's the thing that I really want to impress. Even if people don't have it totally figured out, the more people that are putting a fight, the more we are going to win. The more they're going to start backing off and leaving people alone.
Yeah, I agree. It's strength in numbers, that's for sure. All right. Thanks, Deborah. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, this is Agenda 21 Talk. This is the last segment of the show, so call in with your comments or questions, 512-646-1984. We'd love to hear you. I'd love to talk to you.
Easy.
Seems like yesterday, it was long ago. Jenny was so lovely, she was queen of my nights. There in the darkness with the radio playing low. And the secrets that we shared.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this March the 22nd, 2016. Call-in number. This is the last segment of the show. Your last chance. 512-646-1984. So, Nana, what did you think about all that? That sound logical?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, I was impressed with Harmon's information that he was giving on the videos. And like I said, anybody who walks away and turns their back on the bar when they find out what's really going on, I mean, that's just a class act in my book. So, I was impressed with that from him, plus the information he was giving. So to have his email address now, that's I'm thrilled.
Let me just jump in here real quick because I did want to make a comment about him turning his back on the bar. Once he found out that everything was all by commercial agreements, that was when he turned in the bar card because he started seeing how that system really works as far as like attorneys representing clients and such. And there's actually only so much that an attorney can do to help you. Representing you, there's only so much that they can do because they've made some kind of agreement with the system too. Okay, they're actually officers of the court, and their ultimate liability is to the system, not to their client. And so when he started to realize that, that's when he ditched the bar card. And now what he does is he helps pro se litigants. He's far, far more effective and I would say dangerous to the bad guys doing what he does now, helping pro se litigants instead of actually representing people. So just wanted to throw that in.
All right. Well, it still takes a lot of character and confidence and faith in God to do that. Because that was his livelihood. And, that's a good point, Robert. Nana. Good point. All right. Anything? Well, so, yeah, it's really interesting. So we're piecing all this together. We've done some stuff and had some success. We get part of it, and somebody else has another part, and we put it all together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and getting back to the property tax thing. So, yeah, that was my understanding, is that because the existing deed has all of these things on there that tie it into this, corporate system, you need to do some sort of re-recording or, as Deborah said, another transaction, another conveyance to get it out of the system. I mean, and that's probably just only one step. I don't know if that's the whole. If just doing that's going to fix everything. I'm sure there's other steps involved as well. But so I've been working on rewriting my deed. And getting rid of state of blank blank and getting rid of the dollars that it was, that was part of the transaction and getting rid of anything that my deed says right on it is subject to ad valorem taxes. Now, I don't know where that came from, but of course we had, when we bought the property, we had gone through the banks and gotten a mortgage and all that stuff. But now that's been paid off. So that obligation is no longer there.
You could always say, well, it's subject to it only if it's used for commercial purposes, because that's all ad valorem means is a tax on commercial use of the property. So you could always make the case that that's all that says. Now, I don't mind going back and doing that. I have updated the land patent, done a title search of the title of everybody that's owned it. And for us, it was pretty easy. But from the original land patent owner to us. So I've done that, updated the assigns to the land patent. But even if you do the right paperwork, if we ever find out what to do with the deed, I'll do that. But even so, they're not going to give up their taxes, their money, income, because, of course, the commissioner gets part of that money. It's part of his salary. He's not going to give it up easily. And you still have the issue of they're not handling it properly. They've artificially changed it without any evidence, which is a fraud, really. But it's a bunch of other things.
That's the frustrating thing right now is that now that, we can see what's going on and what we need to fix, even fixing it, they're still ignoring everything. And that's, how do you get them to recognize your new status or your new, that you're claiming that you're under the law of the land, not the law of the sea or the law of the air or whatever.
I think I have an answer to that. You have to go to battle with them in court. It's the only way. And as far as what we're talking about, restructuring the deed and having another transaction and things like that, what I've learned from Harmon, from going to the School of Harmon Taylor on the property issue, getting your property off the tax roll is not really the goal. I mean, that everybody gets caught up with that because they don't want to pay property taxes, and rightfully so. But really, how you solve the problem of the taxes, the grass police, the zoning, the city ordinances, all of those problems are solved when you lay the axe to the root and remove the property out of their system altogether, because the ultimate goal in restructuring that deed is to make your property eminent domain proof. Okay, because once you have set up your property from a legal perspective that it is eminent domain proof, then all of those other things fall into place as basically as really nice side effects. But if you like focus in all these different directions of, I want to get off the tax roll, and now I got to deal with ordinances, and now I this and that, and they're trying to zone me, and I can't add square footage on my house, and and then you start having to fight them on all these different fronts, and they start dragging you apart. And like you just said, Nana, it's like it seems like no matter what you do, they don't care. They just ignore it. They just steamroll you. And so the way to solve that problem is that you have to set up the property from a legal perspective on the deed with another transaction, basically bulletproof, and then bring it on, man. Bring it on. And actually, you can't even really start suing them to get them to leave you alone until they come after you first, because you don't have standing. There's not been any harm. I mean, it's kind of like I wish it didn't have to be that way. I wish we could just set up the deed properly and then just start filing lawsuits and get relief and equity and injunctions and stuff like that and make them go away. But that's just not the way it works, because you have to wait until you have been harmed. And so the only way that can happen is you have to, send all the letters to the beneficiaries and the former beneficiaries, noticing them that the trust has been dissolved. They're no longer beneficiaries. And of course, they're not even going to understand what that means, and they're going to ignore it. Or, the lawyers may save it in a file somewhere. And then when they start coming after you for the taxes, then you have to fight them in court, and you have to be prepared to go up on appeal and go up to the Supreme Court of your state, and even all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. But I mean, it's a tremendous undertaking, and so that's why, like, for me and my husband, we choose our battles. Okay, we choose our battles. I mean, because there's issues like opting out of being a taxpayer. That's a big one. I mean, that's actually most of Harmon's clients is fighting the IRS. Okay. And then there's opting out of the transportation system, the regulatory scheme of transportation system. There's opting out of the whole property thing where they got their clutches in your property. I mean, there's lots of other things too. Even with the radio, dealing with the FCC and they're trying to, smoke and mirrors with their baiting to get people to agree to their regulatory scheme and get licenses and stuff like that. So you got to kind of pick your battles, and you just keep going, and you learn as much as you can. And I would say, definitely have Harmon take y'all under his wing, because he knows where it's at for sure. He's done us a lot of good. He's helped us tremendously over the years, and we've got a really good team here.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to talk to him. Now, Steve from Florida has called in. We only have a minute left, so there's not much time. I could bring him on. I know what he's going to say. I'm going to bring him on. You just have a few seconds, Steve. But I know what you're going to say is you don't need the deed or anything. Go after him.
Yeah, man, just go after for violating your right to own property. There's no way there could be an ad valorem tax on a piece of non-commercial property. They're falsifying the records and misclassifying the property.
It is a commercial property, Steve, because if you go through the standard procedure of purchasing property with real estate agents and mortgage companies and real estate lawyers and all that kind of thing, you have agreed on the deed and through all of these various documents that you sign at the get-go when you purchase the property, you have agreed from the get-go that it is designated for commercial use. So you can't go back after the fact and say, you're violating my rights, it's not for commercial use. It doesn't work that way. You have to set up the transaction properly from the beginning. I mean, you can try to go after them, and this is what I was saying before. Sometimes people will actually get them to back off, but only because you're causing them so much trouble. It doesn't mean that the legal strategy is actually valid, because if you pushed it all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, it would not fly. I'm just telling you that. But, I mean, kick up a storm if you want and see if you can get them to back off. I mean, there's always, the dust storm strategy, but I'm just saying you got to set it up right from the beginning. So
we've been nailing them right here.
All right, great. Okay, we're out of time. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, we're out of. Sorry, Steve. I know I brought you on. You hardly have any time to talk. Thanks for calling in and listening, Steve. I really appreciate it. Well, that's our show for this week. We really had a good time, and thanks, Deborah, for being on, and thanks, Steve, for calling in and just saying 5 words and all you got. But so everybody have a good, safe, blessed week, and keep safe, and we'll talk to you next week, and maybe we'll talk some more about the same issue. Talk about property tax next week. Good night, everybody.